So we receive a call that same night saying La Caravelle has been nominated in the category of most outstanding restaurant in the country, which is the highest award.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. My guest today is the Champagne Queen. I loved reading her description. She is the Chief Bubble Officer at La Caravelle Wines and Champagnes. She is a legend in the food world. She owned a very famous restaurant together with her husband in New York. And she is so many other things. You're going to hear it all in this episode. Rita Jammet, welcome to Most Memorable Journeys.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm thrilled to be here.
I am fascinated by you. I want to give a quick shout out to my friend and your cousin Rima, who got us together.
Yes.
My very, very good friend here in Cyprus. And whenever she talks about you, I'm fascinated by what you do. You were born in Saudi Arabia. That's what I read. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. My father had work in Saudi Arabia. We're originally from Iraq, but I never lived in Iraq because when I was born, my dad had work in Saudi Arabia with the royal family. And they spent a few years there. So my first 5 years were spent in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, with my mom and dad.
Do you remember anything?
Sadly, not much. I was so young. I just remember maybe a couple of tidbits here and there. My parents entertained a lot. They were, with all the expat community. They used to be frequent hosts of dinners and parties. And I remember being sent to bed. Obviously, I was under 5. So when the guests came, it was go to bed. And I was like pouting, why can't I join the party? Anyways.
So you were a party girl then already.
Exactly.
No wonder.
No, anyway, it was very happy. It was a happy time. That's what I can say for sure.
That's fantastic. You went away from Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Your parents are Iraqi, but you are Lebanese. I mean,
exactly. When time came to go to, there's a tradition in our family. All the girls go to this French Catholic boarding school, Les Sœurs de Besançon, which was in Beirut. And then at age 5, my parents sent me there in boarding school at age 5. It was not easy, but the good thing is that I had family there, including my uncle Vodi and my sister Nimi. And so my uncle Rima, our friend who connected us, was my cousin. That's Rima's father and mother. So I used to stay with them over the weekend and see my sister. But it was still, and that was an interesting time to be in a boarding school at age 5. Your parents in another country, but they had, it was not much choice. So.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And
that's a little girl. It's good that you had family around you, though.
Yes, definitely. And Lebanon is very near and dear to my heart. Lebanon is really definitely part of me and my heritage. Still to this day, I'm very strongly loyal and attracted to Lebanon.
Yeah, I love Lebanon, and it's a 20-minute flight from here.
Yeah.
Of course, right now it's such a sad situation.
Very sad.
It's such a beautiful country full of such beautiful people and hospitality and food and I love everything about Lebanon.
Exactly.
How long did you stay in Lebanon?
I stayed until the age of 12, which was about 7 years. In the meantime, my parents had, when my father was doing his work in Saudi Arabia, he traveled throughout the world frequently. And the one country where he was traveling and really fell in love with was Switzerland. My father was a visionary. He saw the Middle East as a barrel of powder ready to explode early on, already with Iraq after he left it, and then the whole Middle East. So he said, I want to establish my family in Geneva, Switzerland, because he saw it as a haven of peace. And beautiful quality of life and a lot of quality. So they moved to Switzerland, and they were leaving me in Beirut to keep learning Arabic because the curriculum was both all French and all Arabic in Beirut. So at some point I rebelled and I said, I want to be with you and mom, and live in the same country and same city. And so finally they relented and I was then transferred to Geneva to another Catholic boarding school, but at least I saw them twice a week. So yeah, that's when it happened at age 12. So it was Pensionnat Marie-Thérèse in Geneva. I have wonderful memories. So I studied there until the age of 18. And then I went to the university in Geneva, had a licence in sciences économiques et sociales, and graduated, then started to work. My first job, I really wanted to work with my father because he was a prominent businessman and an incredible role model. Tough, tough. But that's the best school. He was so exacting and, a lot of strong character, but ethics and rigor of work. So that really gave me a wonderful, I would say, framework for my professional life.
I guess it's all about discipline, and people talk about all this overnight success. This is a lot of rubbish because there is no overnight success. It's a lot of work, a lot of discipline, a lot of persistence and consistency, and that's what it's all about. I read somewhere when I was preparing for this interview that you liked le goûter in Switzerland. You liked
when I was in the boarding school, every day at 4:00, le goûter was a crispy ballon, a little roll of crispy bread with a chocolate bar. To me, that's like the epitome of simplicity, but so satisfying.
I know that because I'm from Switzerland originally, and it's what we used to have as well. It's in Swiss German it's called a Branchli because I don't know how the c'est la branche. It's a little twig, isn't it? The size of a little twig, the piece of chocolate.
Yes, it's a small bar of chocolate. It's small.
Yes, yeah. You worked with your father. You had studied. How did you become a foodie? You're a thoroughbred food connoisseur. What happened?
So it's on two fronts. First of all, I love to eat. I'm an Epicurean, so I love good things. That I was also exposed to wonderful cuisine with my father and mother, and my mother was an incredible cook, and so that already. And then when it was time to drink, my father was a Chevalier du Tastevin, the Burgundy Society, and he made me taste the wine. At first, I was like, when I was very young, this tastes so weird. But then he really taught me to appreciate good wine, and instantly my palate was formed with a very good start because I only drink wines that are well made. Don't go for quantity and lower quality. Just like drink the best, like a collector. And that's how it started. Also, at some point, my father was in the hospitality business. He owned a hotel. Also, the fact that in the Middle East, as you know, people are very, very hospitable. They love to host people in their house. And that I really got that very strong gene. And it followed me to this day, actually. Then it went into the business itself, especially after I married André, who's I'm fast forwarding here.
That's fine. We'll go back. Just
go exactly. Ahead. We'll come back. So my husband André Jammet, whose father founded the Bristol Hotel in Paris. That's how I really got into hospitality. Also, to backtrack a little bit, where we were in Beirut, my sister was married to Albert Sader, who was also a restaurateur. He had a restaurant called L'Express in the heart of Beirut. And I was kind of immersed in hospitality and enjoying every bit of it. So really, I like to say it's in the blood, but my upbringing.
You are so absolutely right about the Middle Eastern hospitality and about all this food. I always feel especially when I go to Lebanon or to Jordan, it's a food haven. It's just the colors and the tastes and the herbs and the smells and the everything. And I insist. I'm a neutral Swiss, so I can say that in this corner of the Mediterranean, Turkey, Lebanon, Israel, Cyprus, we are all the same.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing.
100%.
If there wasn't politics, if it wasn't those stupid situations that are created by greedy people, it would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
It would be.
I think food is the great equalizer and the connector. Actually, I have a friend who has a school in Israel to shape as summer camps and programs throughout the year, young Israeli students and Palestinian students. So through the connection of food with the Institut Paul Bocuse, so it's all, promoting peace in a normal way, in a really organic way, I would say, putting all aside all the, the hatred and all the not terrible things that don't need to be here.
Absolutely not. And people say couples who cook together stay together. It connects people doing the working in the kitchen. I think it's also very sensual.
It is. It is. I mean, cooking is a very, I think it's a multidisciplinary thing to do, because you also have culture, you have history, geography, and also it's an art. It's an art form.
Yeah.
So you express yourself with the cooking, and the fact that you enjoy it is just all of that is one of the unique things in life.
When you were living in Switzerland and before you met your husband or after you met your husband, how often did you go to Lebanon?
I went frequently, at least every summer and maybe another time during the year. We used to spend the summers in Lebanon. Yeah.
Very connected.
It was like just a very special place, like a kind of a unique place, East meets West. And I think in Lebanon, there's such magic in this country. The people, the food, the sights, the hospitality is a major part of it. And to this day, I think it's a country that has a magic to it. Sadly, it's in a very dire situation. And I do hope and pray that they are able to find a way to turn the corner and bring us back the beautiful Lebanon that we've known.
Yeah, I really hope so. Beirut was the Paris of the Middle
Absolutely.
East. And, at the times I came to Cyprus in the 80s. And when I came to Cyprus, it was the craziest time of the civil war. The Beirut airport had just been bombed by the Israelis and was closed. And Middle East Airlines was operating out of Larnaca Airport. And there was a boat going to Junia every day. Mm-hmm. I was very young at the time, and I was fascinated by these Lebanese women, the way they were having tea parties and the way they were dressed. I was really, really impressed.
Oh yes, they're pretty sophisticated.
They know how to do it.
They do. I mean, Lebanese people are just very special people, because they're also, first of all, so resilient, and they're smart, and they adapt themselves. They open to other cultures, because you start by speaking 2-3 languages right away: Arabic, French, and English right away. So that gives an opening, and all the qualities that we mentioned before: the hospitality, the grace, and the generosity.
And a real Lebanese speaks all these 3 languages in one phrase.
Exactly. Oh my God. It's very funny. It's very funny.
So Rita, tell me, when did you go to America, and why did you go to America?
The first time I set a foot in America was with my husband at our honeymoon. Because André, my husband, had spent a year in New York as a representative of his family's Bristol hotel in the early 70s. And then I heard all these stories. My father, who used to do business with America, so I just had America was like something up there that I really was striving to know and to discover. When we got married, we decided to take our honeymoon and go to the US, and go to several cities and do, a beautiful tour. And it's very interesting, because when we landed in JFK, the very first time I set a foot in this country, on the road from JFK to Manhattan, it's not the most glamorous ride of all, at all, actually. I said to André, "This is the country I want to live in." And he's like, "Whoa, who's this crazy woman I just married?" He said, "You haven't seen anything yet." I was like, I really, there's something in this country. As much as I adore Switzerland and living in Switzerland, but there was something in America that I just couldn't put my finger on. But it was I felt it in my instinct. And lo and behold, it happened later after we got married in 77. And in 78, the family hotel, the Bristol, was sold. So we decided we had to move out of the hotel, and we stayed a year in Paris, but André was miserable. He was like a fish out of water, because he was actually born in the hotel, in a hotel room at the Bristol. So you can imagine, to all of a sudden in your adult age to be taken out of that. So, we looked at each other and we said, you know what? We don't have children. Let's just take our suitcases and go. Immigrants, we're just going to go to America. So we just arrived here in January 1980 and never left.
That's amazing. What a decision.
Yes.
That takes a lot of guts to do something like that.
Both our families were up in arms. You're crazy. You're unconscious. What are you doing? You don't know. Like, what's going to happen? We had a project for someone to sponsor André for the green card and a job opportunity. So we said, let's go. We just rented an apartment. We come with our suitcase for 2 months, and we put all our stuff in storage in Paris. And we arrive in New York. And after a week, we discovered that these two prospects are not really part of reality. So we sat down, we looked at each other and we said, okay, we want to stay here. Who do you know? Who do I know? How do we make this happen? So André, through his hotel connections, he reconnected with the family, the Tisch family and the Lowe's. And one of the managers there, Udo Schlentrich, actually, I think he was from Austria, if I'm not mistaken, or that he has known in the past, told him, you know what, come to New York and then we'll give you a job at the Regency Hotel and we can sponsor you for your green card. So that's how it started.
That's how it started. And when did you open the restaurant? When did you open La Caravelle?
So we actually didn't open the restaurant. We bought the restaurant because the restaurant was opened in 1960 by two Frenchmen, Fred Decret and Robert Mézin. And when André got the green card, so he was looking to open a restaurant. So he had met Robert Mézin. And Robert said, I'll come with you and advise you on the lay of the land and, the spaces, the neighborhoods and all that. I should say one interesting thing is that André, when he came to America back then in the 70s, the first restaurant he set a foot in was La Caravelle. How interesting, right? A little twist of
destiny. Yeah.
It was meant to be, I guess.
Yes.
So at any rate, Robert kept all the projects they were looking at. He's like, no, that's not good. No, this should be better. This should be better. Basically, he nixed everything. And then one day he said to him, okay, let's have lunch. And he told him, you know what? I want to retire from La Caravelle. Would you buy my shares, my half of the restaurant? So that's how it happened. First half in 1984. And then André had a partner, Roger Fessaguet, who was the chef at the opening of the restaurant in 1960 and had become a partner later. So they co-operated the restaurant for 4 years. And in 1988, André bought out Roger. And that's where I started to get involved because prior to that, I was busy making babies. So that's how in 1988 became sole proprietors of the restaurant and the adventure started.
Tell me a little bit about that adventure, because as far as I know, it was a very famous restaurant and a very established restaurant. Did you have any famous people coming to eat at your restaurant?
Oh, yes, countless people. I should say that when the restaurant opened, before our time in 1960, there was the major restaurant in New York was Le Pavillon. And this is the genesis of all the French restaurants that opened in New York. And the two founders of La Caravelle used to work at Le Pavillon. So I'm saying this because in 1960, when they opened La Caravelle, it was supposed to be a little bistro, an easy restaurant. And then the Kennedy family, who was frequently patrons of Le Pavillon, they followed Robert and Fred Decret, and they said to them, if you open, we'll be there. So this is 1960, September 1960. And in November 1960 were the elections. And who gets elected? John Kennedy. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine how that propelled the restaurant, to right the top of the top with everybody coming there, the glitterati and all the show business and politicians and business people, etc. So that's how the restaurant was instantly, promoted to number one in the country because the Kennedy family, it was like their dining room there. And
wow.
Yeah, that was quite a the best PR you can get. And then eventually, when Jackie Kennedy needed a chef at the White House, as you know, she was a great Francophile. When she needed a chef at the White House, she naturally turned to La Caravelle and the owners and say, can you find a chef, groom him, teach him all the dishes we like to eat, and then we'll place them at the White House. And this is what happened. They brought
I didn't read that anywhere, even though I read a lot about you.
I'm glad there's things you can discover.
Oh, there is.
And one thing I should mention, which we come back to later, is that one of the dishes that the Kennedy family was very fond of and was obviously on the menu of La Caravelle was called Poulard au Champagne. Poulard, and became Poulard Maison Blanche, White House, Poulard,
Sure.
So guess what the sauce was? Champagne sauce. There we go. So
there's something about that champagne, Rita.
There we go.
So When did you get involved? I mean, what did you do at the restaurant? What was your position? I mean, obviously you were the owner, but you didn't cook, did you?
No, I didn't cook. I did a lot of things, but I didn't cook. Cooking was reserved at home for my family.
Okay.
But André was managing the front of the house and then the business in general. And given that I have a business background, did all the back office work. I managed that, the PR, and I would say a full-time job, which is dealing with chefs.
Mm-hmm.
Takes the special skills and
are they as much prima donnas as people say?
It depends on the individual character. The answer is yes, most of the time. But you have to understand that chefs are artists under a lot of pressure. So you know what that means. It's very, first of all, physically, it's very demanding. And then mentally, it's a high pressure job. You have to produce and synchronize, and the stakes are high when you have especially important people in the dining room. And any guest is important, obviously, but when everybody comes at the same time and you want everything to be as good as possible, you have to manage the team, it's a tough job, but they're wonderful. They're wonderful people, very creative. And yes, it takes a special, like walking on eggshells. Sometimes you have to be a cop, you have to be a counselor, you have to be a nanny. So,
because, I mean, as you say, every guest is important, but when you have a person with a lot of influence and this person's food is not the way they imagined it, things can go wrong. I mean, it can have a big impact.
Exactly.
What was the worst that happened in your time at La Caravelle?
I would say not really an incident, but the roughest time I would say is right after 9/11. That was a very, very tough time, because, we lost some of our staff. One of our pastry cooks was Dan Libretti. He was really a New York firefighter who had a passion for cooking pastry. And he was working with us in addition to his job. And he was one of the ones who was called right away among the first trucks for 9/11. So that was, the whole tragedy was, I think it was a collective trauma that probably I would say that was the roughest time that we had at La Caravelle.
Yeah, and the best?
Oh my God, there's so many amazing times, with the Kennedy family. Even though when we came, they were no longer obviously at the White House. The Kennedy family, we had wonderful guests. We had Salvador Dali, Pavarotti, you name it. We had so many very, very interesting people. The fashion was very important at La Caravelle. Oscar de la Renta, everybody from that era. You also had Mrs. Astor, and she was a very, very frequent guest at La Caravelle. And in fact, she decided to fund the construction of the Lincoln Center. Her pavilion was at La Caravelle. She decided to fund that. And so a lot of interesting moments. Martha Stewart, also the day she created her magazine, this right after signing, they came to La Caravelle. So we have some very interesting, momentous occasions. The Hermes family, the Chanel team. It was very, very interesting. And back in the days, we didn't want to take pictures not to invade the privacy of our guests, which means that we don't always have all the photos that we have in our memories. But
that is the problem. I mean, no, it's not a problem. It's the wrong word, because I was a tour guide when I was young for 11 years, and I traveled all over the world, and I had to have very, very few pictures because we weren't really allowed to take our cameras with us because we were tour leaders. We didn't have time to take pictures. Right. I met the Mother Teresa once at her orphanage in Calcutta, and I always think, how cool would it be to have a selfie with Mother Teresa? But, as you say, it's also for those people who are always in the limelight, they come to a restaurant to relax, don't they? They don't want to be bothered again.
Exactly.
But I totally get you. I know exactly what you're talking about, because it would be nice to have a little picture to show all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the time when Robin Williams came to dinner, we had wonderful interactions with him. He was just a very, very special human being, and he signed autographs for our sons, and our pastry chef did a special dessert for him, and he hazelnut with a long spike of caramel, and he was his movie Good Morning Vietnam, so he was saying Good Morning Vietnam, and It was just magical, but no photo. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's in your heart.
It's in our
isn't it?
heart and our memories.
Yeah, that's what I always say. It's in our and we have stories to tell about all these things. But it must have been a fascinating time for you. In 2004, La Caravelle closed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Actually, it was a late consequence of 9/11, of September 11, because after 9/11, I think society changed and people's values changed. First of all, a lot of people wanted to eat something comforting in their neighborhood. And therefore, the whole notion of fine dining was redefined at that time. We were a classic French restaurant. We did introduce some contemporary dishes because when we had these talented chefs, you have to give them an opportunity to be there to show their creations and express their talent. So we were able to have that. However, we were bound by all the parameters in our DNA, which was French classic, meaning we needed a certain dress code. Our captains were wearing tuxedos, which was the norm in the 60s. But as time went by, it became a little less, I would say, that part of formal was not as desirable. And there's only so much we could go, so far we could go in relaxing the code without being hard to, like, who are you? Altering ourselves. If people can't figure you out, you have to remain true to your identity. You evolve as much as you can, but you cannot pass a certain point because then you will no longer be who you are. And we decided we decided with the pressures of business, having had it for 20 years, we said, you know what, it's time. So we did that. And we had a beautiful exit. Yeah, we had a beautiful exit because just before announcing, the night before we were announcing that we were going to close, I received a call from, the James Beard Foundation, which is very important here. It's like the Oscars of the restaurant world. So we received a call that same night saying La Caravelle has been nominated in the category of most outstanding restaurant in the country, which is the highest award. And at first I thought it was a joke. I said, oh, come on, this is not the time. It's not a joke. It's really happening. This was in March. The awards are in May and you have to stay in business. I was like, okay. So there goes the announcement. And when it was time to, for the awards, we were there. In a way, fortunately, we didn't win because it would have been tough to win and say, okay,
we're to close.
That's right. So hello, goodbye. But it was the best way to exit. So that same day, I saw the wonderful journalist, Florence Fabricon, and I talked to her the next day and we announced the closing. But we gave our guests 10 days. We say these are our last 10 days. And we were so packed. Everybody came and it was a beautiful exit because instead of, mourning the death, we celebrated the life of the restaurant and gave full opportunities to come and dine a last time there.
That's beautiful. And I guess it was the best way to do it. But you were saying something before about an identity of a restaurant and that you can expend a certain amount, but you have to keep an identity. And what do you say about all these restaurants? There are some restaurants or many they serve everything. They have so many things on their menu. Yeah. And I always think, it can't be good. How is it possible to have all these different dishes?
Yeah.
What do you think about these places?
Well, I think, that when you have a very large menu that goes all over the place and you don't really have an identity or who you are in there, it's hard to perceive. But, sometimes if it's for a large number of people, that formula might work. But in our line, where we were in our category, you have to have a focus. People have to know who you are and what they're going to have when they come to your restaurant. I think it's very important.
So, Rita, when you cook at home, what do you cook? What is your favorite cuisine?
I go back to Lebanese cuisine and Iraqi. That's those are my go-to. Right now, my audience is very small. It's just André and me. Because our sons are all happily married but when we gather, there's a couple of dishes that they love, and I'm thrilled to cook that. There's a recipe of a lemon and a saffron chicken with the yellow saffron basmati rice that everybody's enamored with. So this is a ritual in our family. Yeah.
Yummy. Have you ever been to Iraq?
I was in Iraq 2 weeks when I was 4 years old. That's it.
Okay, that doesn't count.
It doesn't count at all.
I was saying to Rima the other day, I want to go to Iraq because, Iraq is the country between the Euphrates and the Tigris. It's the beginning of the world. Maybe we should arrange. Would you come if Rima and I arrange?
I would love to. I don't know how it is being a former Iraqi citizen, if I can go there, but it would be a dream because even though I have not lived in Iraq, it's really, I'm my origin and I'm very proud of it and very, I think you have to, when you acknowledge and live your heritage, it's the best thing to do because it's you. It's like nothing beats knowing exactly who you are, where you come from, as far as civilization, as far as ethnicity and origin. It's the birth of civilization. And we also were Chaldeans. So that's also the origin of Christianism. So all that is very important.
It is. And it's a country so misunderstood.
Oh, yes.
These parts of the world are just so beautiful. I went, funny enough, for the first time, even though I live 40 minutes away, I went to Jordan last autumn. And oh my God, I totally fell in love.
It's a wonderful civilization. That's for sure. It is.
But after you closed the restaurant, you kept the champagne business.
Yes, exactly. The champagne was actually created in 1998 while we still had the restaurant, only for our guests as a kind of an extra amenity of hospitality. It was our label and it was produced obviously in Champagne, and it was only for our guests for consumption in the restaurant. So after the restaurant closed, we thought we were going to stop everything. And then our guests and friends and family said, "Hey, Rita, why don't you continue the Champagne?" It was a daunting thought because, as far as branding goes, it's a brand extension from a restaurant to a standalone brand. That was it was a challenging and kind of almost scary project. But I did not want to leave the world of hospitality. And I thought this would be a perfect way to stay in the hospitality. Also, talk about branding. I had La Caravelle on my forehead all over. So if you remove that, who am I?
So you're, as you say, the chief bubble officer.
Yeah. And nothing beats the self-appointed C-suite title.
And that works. I mean, you do supply restaurants in the US with that champagne.
Yes, definitely. Yes, it works because I'm still in that wonderful world that I feel I belong to, and it's a group of people that's incredibly generous and warm and welcoming and supportive. You see restaurateurs supporting each other like in no other industry. Peers, they're peers, they're not. Obviously, in a way, everybody's a competitor, but there's room for everyone with your style and your identity. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And I think there is room for everyone in the world, no matter what you do. I think competition is something good and very often also misunderstood. And I think the worst emotion that you can have in life is envy, because that stops you from being successful. When you are happy for other people, you will do well as well.
Exactly. And that's a very good point, because it's one of my big mantras in life is just be positive and kind. Basically, if you want to sum it up. And when you do that, you attract like people.
Yes.
I also, despite the fact that we have La Caravelle Champagne and wine, I say we have a Bordeaux, I'm fascinated and just so enamored with Champagne, the region, the wines, the people, any brand. You'll see on my feed, I'm fortunate to be able to enjoy many other brands of Champagne. And I find it such a beautiful art form. So I think it's magic in there. And you often hear me talk about a lot of other brands because I love Champagne.
You're definitely my kind of girl. Now,
so are you?
Tell me, I want to talk about your son, Nicolas. Yes. Mm-hmm. He started a company. Well, first it was just a salad shop, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I remember Rima telling me about it. And we went, when the kids and I used to go to New York quite a lot, we went to the one at Bryant Park, which was about, 4 or 5 years ago. But that business became big, didn't it? Sweet Green, it's like a dream.
Definitely. It's the reality is 3 students in Georgetown were tired of not having healthy but good dining options. It was either healthy and boring or not so good, or good but rich and not easy to live with. So they decided to open something that served what they like to eat, basically full meal salads. And they opened this tiny little shop, which is 50 square meters in the heart of Georgetown. It's interesting enough, it was a little white house with a green roof on M Street. The rest is history. It's just caught on. And now they have, I'm not sure of the exact number because it changes every day, around 150 units throughout the US. And they went public on New York Stock Exchange in November. I mean, it's really, we're so proud. And to this day, every time I eat a sweet green salad, I feel so good. Because I think it feeds more than the stomach. I think it feeds really
the soul.
Exactly. It's locally sourced. It's done with love and care, and it just works. It's so good, and we're so proud of our son Nicolas, and I mean his brothers too are also very accomplished in their own fields. So,
but he stayed in the family, kind of in the family passion, in the family business.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I was fascinated by this whole story, and that this is the American dream, isn't it? This is the proof that it's still possible to start small and to make something with it. Of course, This is extremely big. I mean, the fact that they have so many outlets is fascinating.
Yeah, it's good. And also it's a beautiful immigrant story. Yes. Because all three partners, Nicolas is obviously, he's French, he's Swiss, he's Iraqi, Lebanese, I mean, all that put together.
He's a lot.
One. And then Nathaniel Roux is Chinese and Mexican. And then Jonathan Neiman is Persian. Persian Jewish people, but they live in LA. So it's just a fantastic cultural and mix, and it's just a beautiful immigrant story, the American dream.
We're going to put the link for Sweet Green in the show notes, and your link to the champagne and everything else. Now, I also want to ask you, Rita, where is your favorite place to go on holidays to? Where do you like to travel to, except Lebanon?
Okay. Except Lebanon. Well, there are several, and I don't really want to rank them, but I'll just name them. I obviously France. France is gorgeous. The south of France, Paris, the Loire Valley, Burgundy. I mean, there's just Champagne region. There are so many areas in France. Then enamored with Japan. I've been to Japan 7 times, and I'm a huge Japanophile. I'm lucky to have developed beautiful friendships there. I adore their food, their culture, their aesthetic. It's just very special country for me. Another country that I discovered that I completely fell in love with was Mexico. Mexico is extraordinary. I have been to Mexico 4 times and still dying to go because it's an enormous country. There's so many things to see, that vibrant culture. And I mean, it enriches the soul when you visit countries like that.
Yeah, that's so true. I have a daughter who is a foodie. She studied at the École Hôtelière de Lausanne, and she developed this food interest. And wherever she goes, she takes a cooking class, and she spent 5 weeks in Iran just before COVID and did a cooking class there. And she and generally wherever. And I love that about her, because she also went to Mexico, and she was telling me the same thing. It's not, it's not just one thing, Mexico. It's a lot. It's big. There is a lot to see.
Real mosaic. Yeah, it's beautiful. The culture is just, and each region has its own identity. It was my first trip there was to Tequila, the actual town named Tequila. It was extraordinary. Just I'll never forget. Not to mention that other than Champagne and Burgundy and Bordeaux wine, I love tequila. So that was
fantastic. Right. Time is passing very quickly, or as I always say, time flies when you're having fun. We are coming to the end of this lovely interview. I really, really enjoyed talking to you. Any last words or any last advice? What should somebody know who likes to cook? What is your secret what is your secret sauce?
My secret sauce, I mean, it goes for the wine and the food, is, in addition to be happy and kind, is know what you like, learn your taste, and then get those things that make you happy. Like a style of wine or a type of cuisine, it has to make you happy. That's the ultimate criteria.
not just eat things because other people eat them.
Exactly. I mean, it's interesting to discover. Also, another thing, we learn at every age. It's never too late to learn. So open your mind and open your palate. And yeah, but if you find what you like, especially in wine and champagne taste, it's the key. That's the key. This wine will be delicious to you because you like it. It makes you happy. That's the end of the day. That's what we're looking for.
Fantastic. Rita Jammet, it was an absolute delight to have you on Most Memorable Journeys. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a delightful conversation, and I hope to see you soon in Cyprus because it's in the books to come and see Cyprus.
Well, when you come to
and everybody.
I want to meet you when you come to Cyprus, but otherwise I'll just have to come to New York or I don't know, maybe in Beirut or in Baghdad. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Thank you so much for having me. All the best. Cheers.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.